Okay, welcome back to the Spark, the Climb, the Ascendancy. I could not be more excited for my guest, Kate. Kate and I would say, are long lost soul sisters, and we met I'll say many years ago. We've probably known each other many lifetimes, but met through just an incredible, just how the universe divinely guides us and puts us in touch with all the right souls at all the right times. And so we are here today to just connect and share. Really, I want her to share her story, and we'll just engage in conversation and allow God, Source Divine, to take this conversation where it's meant to be had for the listeners. So I'm going to just let you start by telling my listeners your story, just who you are, how did you get to this moment in time, and then we'll just kind of take the conversation from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me in this beautiful space that you're creating in the world right now. And it's really an honor to be able to vibe together soul to soul. So yeah, let's see where we get to play today in the quantum, I guess. I mean, that's where we met, was in like a quantum course, actually. And here we are.
And here we are. It's so interesting because we were briefly catching up before we started recording, and there's people you meet in your life where you have a familiarity with them, like you feel like you've always known them. And then there's also time where, life that we are being lived by, takes us on our, journeys, and it takes us out and brings us back. And so we were spending a little time just catching up, and it's amazing how it's like it's like I talked to you yesterday and no time had passed at all. So we were also joking about how time is really an optical illusion, because it really is very hard to track. And it just feels like home when I get to talk to you or spend time with you. So it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's so good that we get to do this live. And I love that you just mentioned the illusion of time, because I find a question around, to tell your story but telling my story has typically not been the easiest thing for me. I think for several different reasons. One, I think when you're an old soul, you come in this life to be a little less defined than other human beings. You find yourself in the liminal spaces. Your greatest explanations are the ones that can't be put into words. And so anytime I would try funnel my soul into like an elevator pitch, if something felt off in my system, and it took years to be able to claim that. And then one of the things that we were speaking about in the pre-chat is, for so many years, I was in hiding, and I fought it, I resisted it, I surrendered to it. It was an incredibly intense process to go through, especially to not gaslight yourself that you are completely screwing up this journey, and to trust that I was hidden in the cleft of the rock by the divine, so that I could learn what intimate communion was with my own soul, with God, with all of life, so that when I emerged, there was an authenticity on my voice. And so it is only now that I'm coming into the season of coming out of hiding. And I'll be honest with you, like, it's still not comfortable. It's a lot better than it's ever been, but it's still not comfortable. And I've noticed that this seems to be happening for a number of people across the planet at the moment, where they are coming into their season of emergence. And it makes perfect practical cosmic sense, because we have a whole new shifting that's taking place of many people that are being activated into their divine callings. And so prior to that, you can pretty much look at your life and go, well, that was just one big training ground. And now the pieces are coming together and the lane is actually appearing, because I think for a lot of us, myself included, I wasn't even sure what the lane looked like, So it's not like I knew there was a lane I was supposed to be running in. I really wasn't sure. It was very touch and go for a long time. So I think I wanted to share all of that as like part of the story that I would like to tell at the moment, because to me, that's so much more relevant than like giving the linear practical details of my life. And I always love these parts of our stories where we get to come in and energetically resonate with one another and go, oh, okay, you too, that's amazing. I'll add this and then you can ask me the next question or we can vibe on the next topic. But I was in California with one of my friends, and we were having this night. We were smoking some cannabis and we were vibing and all of that. And I turned to her at one point and I said, it's pretty much the story of my life is I'm uncomfortable, but I'm still vibing. And that has literally been the summary of this entire ascension journey. And everything is like just being perpetually uncomfortable, first of all, with being in a human body for the first how many years of your life, trying to orientate to that and the shock of it. And then getting into the body, and going, okay, cool. Maybe I could embrace the fact that I'm here, moving past that soul resistance, especially if you're coming from some far distant star family, or I like to say some of us were like a little bit more resistant volunteers. We were like, listen, I was aiming for my couple of thousand years of rest, and I just got roped in by some other space cowboy or space cowgirl from my soul family who was like, I'm not going if you're not going, and if I'm going, you're going. And somehow we managed to convince each other, perhaps in one drunken night up there in the cosmos, we were like, yeah, let's do it for the Great Awakening. And so hence we all found ourselves here. And I'm not sure where I was going with that, but uncomfortable but vibing. So that's my life story.
I love the uncomfortable and vibing. And I know you and I were speaking a little bit about this, just that reconciliation or coming into that harmony or balance of loving the humanness of ourselves and also loving the divine, and that we're both, and that the divine couldn't experience itself without our humanness, and to embrace and love that. And you perfectly said, like, I'm always trying to come into that harmony or that yin and yang within myself, because sometimes I think on this spiritual journey, it feels so good to be in the ethers and so connected that it's like, okay, I'm just going to leave my body and I want to reside over here. But the reality is we are humans. We're in this human experience for a reason, and it's our training ground or whatever we want to call it to help us grow and ascend to the next level. And we couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a marking point for me when I realized, I think sometimes also the more mystical we are and the more spiritual we are, the more, like you said, home doesn't feel like this place. And so it's very easy to feel like you don't belong. And for the longest time, I thought I was going to feel that way my whole life, until one day I realized, oh my goodness, like, have I ever given myself the privilege of fully grounding here on Earth? Like, how many opportunities and doors are remaining closed to me at the moment, because I'm not fully accepting that I'm here and that I'm here to like enjoy this journey. If I'm always gritting my teeth, and if I'm always telling myself the narrative that I don't belong here and I don't really want to be here, but I'm kind of, one of God's strongest warriors, so like I signed up for this. And that narrative is creating a reality for me that I'm shutting out a lot of the things that would genuinely light me up. And so part of the process of coming home to myself in like this season and, this era has been fully accepting what it feels like to be fully human and falling in love with Kate, the human being. What does she love? What's her vibe? What is she into? And it was so interesting. The more that I fell in love with that, the more different parts of me were able to emerge. And actually, the quicker the shedding process of the not self started to happen, because there was something to replace it with. It wasn't this battle of, I've got to let go of stuff that's not really me. It was like, I think I've got a vision for what feels like this would be amazing to be me. And so it anchored me further into the process, and it gave me hope. It gave me hope for a life that I could thoroughly enjoy, that it wasn't going to be all suffering. Which I do want to say this, that I think is one of the biggest shifts we're going through at the moment is we have been rewiring our suffering DNA into a much greater joy-based DNA, which is not an unrealistic, I'm going to be joyful all the time, but we sure as heck can be a lot more joyful and actually enjoy it. And so being able to integrate the parts of ourselves where that suffering DNA has been dictating a particular timeline that we're on. And it's not about bypassing it or just going straight into like, I'm just all pleasure states or anything. It's actually like facing off with the pain and the core wounds and all of that. But I really do believe that we are writing new DNA scripts for ourselves. And as a result, that's one of the practical things that's causing the timeline shift on the earth of the two timelines that you can be on. So, yeah.
No, I love that. And I think, that's such a profound insight around how we have to reconcile the fact that we are human and to be here and to love that aspect of us and to sit in that, I think, suffering and understand like, okay, it's kind of it's a tool to help us remember like, oh, this is where I'm disconnected from my divinity. Like I'm sad because I'm not remembering the divine piece of me. And so I think that's one thing that I've really been playing with recently is how do I work with the shadow side or the really human element of it and that feminine and feeling into that, but then also antiquating or bringing in the divinity or the masculine of just this is who you are, and that they get to come together. Like I get to feel that humanness, but also the remembrance of, no, I am love. I am love. Yes, I may have felt unworthy in this circumstance or here, and I can feel into that and love those aspects of me that really were helping me remember the disconnect. Like they're a teacher to remember our divinity. And so you just said that so beautifully. And I think we talked about earlier how it's so refreshing when you catch up with somebody or hear somebody else's story and you realize like, oh, I'm not on this path alone. There's other people working through this in a different way.
Yeah. Because like we were saying before this, we all went through these sort of periods of loneliness. And even if we had a couple of core people around us, some people had that, some people didn't. And it was by no fault of anyone's own. I think this was going to play out the way that it was going to play out. And a lot of us signed up for the accelerated timeline ascension package, particularly the wild, brave ones who were like, yo, I'm not going to miss the wave. So do whatever you got to do on me, Lord, may it be so that I can get ready for the greatest show on earth. And so a lot of us got put on accelerated paths, and some of us were literally taken out of society. Like we were completely removed from everything, like floating in this weird void where it was literally just the inner process. And so coming together at this point, we were saying a little bit before this in the chat, but I think a lot of people in that process there was a little bit of panic. Did I miss my soul tribe? did I miss my moment to be with my soul tribe? Is everybody finding their soul tribes except me? It's such a common thing that like I hear with people on their ascension journey of like, well, it seems like everyone else is kind of clicking into place and I seem to be a little bit slower. And I like to say, honestly, like great things take time. And so some of the people who are actually like pretty heavyweights in what they're called to bring to the planet feel like they're a little bit behind at the moment. And like they're playing a bit of catch up. But I just feel to say this, the timing is absolutely perfect for each and every single person. And you've got to trust in the depth of what it is that you are called to bring to this earth, because some people are called to bring, like, they're going to be like real heavy swingers when it comes to kind of what they're going to release on the planet. And prior to that, I don't know why this is all coming out now, because this is actually quite an old vision that I've carried for many years. But prior to that, you're going to have people you've got the ones who prepare the way. You've got the ones who are like the voice in the wilderness. You've got the ones who come out as like sort of frontline people, and then you've also got your heavy hitters at the back. And it's not a superiority thing. It's just different roles and different timings. And I think the faster we can sink into whatever and obviously there are multiple different roles in between there. You got to have people who are also going to perform the live act of like heralding the awakening. You're obviously going to have the people who are going to do that. And, they're actually not really sure what's going on. You've got the mirror neurons, which is a new term that just dropped for me yesterday, of like human beings who are like mirror neurons. They still have to come into their own divinity and power. And so they will mirror other people, whatever's happening with the awakening buzz and all that sort of stuff. And they play a role too, they play a role in like amping the volume up, in like creating the frequency and the waves across the planet. And so not to be stressed out or alarmed if your process has run really freaking deep in this. If you feel like God has taken you to the freaking depths of absolutely everything, like that is not something that you can rush. That is something that what we actually need right now, more than anything, is we need people of character on this earth. Mm-hmm. Because you got a lot of like bubbly energy. And it's so great because we need that for the Renaissance. But what we need for the longevity of the greatest awakening is we need people who walk in character and integrity. And so there are a lot of people right now who like are either just coming out of their season of hiding or that day is still coming for them. And I just feel like in this moment, they need to be encouraged to be like, listen, your process, just stay true to it. Just stay true to what's happening inside of you, because your time will come and your medicine will be potent.
Oh, I just receive all of that beautiful energy from you. And wisdom. And you're so right. Like you're always on perfect time. Like everything is in divine timing. And I remember on our journey together in the group we were in, just one of the things I was working on, and I am still working on, is the term surrender. But how do you come into, this has come through for me very recently, like how do you come into a vibration of complete trust? So it's hard to go, okay, our human self with surrender, like let go, is there like, what? We're very controlling. Like, what do you mean? I can't let go. What do you want me to let go of? But I think, how do we come into that vibration of just complete trust in the divine, trust in the knowingness that God's plan is a more perfect plan than Erin's egoic plan she has for herself. And that I'm here to do God's will, and God's will happens through me when I'm in alignment and authenticity with the way He is asking me to orientate myself on this earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so beautiful the way that you've said it, because there's a shifting that takes place from like the free fall trust into the void, into the unknown. I'm not actually sure what I'm surrendering to. And then when certain specifics start coming through, or like you can feel just even that trust of, wait a second, there is a divine plan. So I think that there's a moment in the ascension journey that we go through where we have to let go of trusting in anything specific, because those specifics were keeping us small, and they were creating a frame around our reality that was still feeding the not self or the false self. And it actually wasn't the truest reflection of our power and our divinity. So we let go of all of that. And then you think, cool, I'm going to float around as a non-specific bubble for the rest of my life. And then there comes this beautiful moment of, oh, shoot, okay, cool. There is actually a divine plan, and it is bigger than I thought it was going to be. Not big in terms of bigger, better, more flashy, more successful, because I think that's part of the huge deconditioning that we go through. And some cultures have it harder than others with this, depending on how deeply embedded a success narrative is, or what your country or culture's definition of success is. And that's like a whole other topic of conversation that I'm super freaking passionate about. But coming into this place then of like, there's a divine plan for me, and I can surrender to that. Like, I can actually trust it with my life. I can trust the divine plan with every single part of me. And I know you mentioned just before this that, you know, coming into, and this is a space I'm also just beginning to explore. I just kind of feel like it fits in with this in the business space. Being able to trust the divine plan and move with that extreme trust is the difference between building like a godly empire that will last and a man-made empire. And I think that that is really what we're coming into, because when we do that, then more of the divine plan can unfold, which means that we'll have more very cool things happening for the collective, and we'll be tapping into more of the superconscious mind for the collective. And that's when we start functioning off of like Aquarian age principles, because it's actually for the collective good versus I got to do this because I still got to prove that something good's going to happen with my life.
It's a very we're going through an energetic shift. I mean, you have articulated it so beautifully, and you're right. I think also surrendering to that divine will, whether that principle is as a human being or energetically, like a business has an energy and a soul to it. Like, are you in alignment with the divine will to serve the collective and up level, continuously helping us up level to that next upgrade that we're meant to go through? We are meant to ascend. There's a reason why it's like we're ascending. Well, we're still, we're still in our humanness. We haven't ascended to the point where we're like out of this planet. And we need our humanness to realize that. But it's so, you just said it so beautifully of like, we're moving into an age. And when things feel really crunchy, I mean, that's the term I use within myself. It's like, this feels really awkward right now. There's something not in truest alignment. And it's an opportunity to look inward and then remember who you really are. Remember that divinity and come into that alignment and balance that out together. So we are on an accelerated path. Sometimes I think we all wonder what's going on. And we signed up for this crazy ride. So strap in.
Strap in, right? It's crazy how many people all got the same phrase, which was like, buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. And honestly, we're doing great. Like, I think we often just need to hear, like, we're doing great. We're doing so great. We've had such a crazy a crazy task to shift so many different layers of the energy on the planet. So we're working into so many multiple dimensions. We really just need to have more celebration parties to be like, and you're doing great, and you're doing great, and you're doing great. And yes, you're totally stark raving mad, and we love that about you, you know.
Yes, 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 and yes, like the laughter and fun. I always think of, we're here to also remember our innocence, of being as little children, because little children just know what they don't know, and they have just such a vibrancy for life. And we're meant to have that lightness and that ease, and remembrance too. So I love the laughter.
Yeah, me too. I have to remind myself because I think I've been over serious for way too much of my life. And it's like a mode that kicks in, it's like the disgruntled mystic who's like, oh my gosh, this can't be happening. This can't still be happening, and then to click into the mode of like, yeah, that's cool, but like, hey, I don't always have to be like that. Like I can also just go out and frolic and play, and laugh. Yeah.
Well, and there's so much joy in that. And I also think about just like why did we incarnate? What were we here to do? And we're here to return that joy and that love to the planet. And as we become aware, I think the key or the winning is our awareness. Like we're observers and can see, oh, this is a little out of alignment. That right there is a huge win. Like to your point earlier, how do we just celebrate more? Because there's so much good going on that tapping into that is so powerful.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because I was just thinking now as we're speaking about this, prior to just a year ago, I don't know if you remember all of the memes and the reels were like of pictures of light workers, that Ben Affleck, that one Ben Affleck meme, and he's just standing there smoking in the corner and he's just like absolutely haggard with life. And we were like light workers who volunteered for the Great Awakening, like how they're feeling now. And that was the narrative because that's genuinely how we were all feeling. And I just track into this moment now, how far we've come from there, how much darkness we've collectively processed, how much shadow we've collectively processed, and how much easier it's becoming for a lot of us to, okay, sweet, we can dip in, but within, we choose lightness afterwards. That's a really big win. If you had have told the version of me back then who heavily resonated with that meme, that I was going to feel like how I feel now, that hey, okay, like it's been intense, but like we're mostly upbeat. I wouldn't have believed it. So if this is how we feel now, like imagine how we're going to continue feeling as we embrace the full spectrum of all of this. We're becoming really versed at holding a lot in our systems, and it's not feeling like this churning feeling of, oh shoot, man, I'm back in the washing machine. We're actually like, we're becoming very spiritually flexible. That's pretty freaking dope.
That is pretty freaking dope. And what a beautiful, yeah, just analogy. As you were saying that, I was just really feeling that shift, that we are transcending and it is becoming a little bit lighter, and we're on our way. We're not, yes, we have our moments that take us back. But I think there's also that, we're here to balance the universe by design. I mean, we're here to come into alignment with natural law and natural principles that we don't, just like gravity, we don't fight. It's how do we come into harmony with and work with because the universe is trying to give us it's trying to deliver us divinity, and we're oftentimes creating the resistance to that. But I think realizing, when I think of just my journey and my evolution, is how do I come into that balance? How do I embrace that feminine energy that is the emotions, that is the feelings, that is the shadow work, and then couple that with the masculine energy of the divine within me that's already perfect. It already holds that. There's nothing that needs to be done. And so I think that's the teeter totter I'm on of life, is like, how do I bring that into balance and harmony between those two energies? Because we're here to harmonize those together.
Yes, that is so beautifully said. So beautifully said. So much of what this planet is taking opposing energies and teaching them how to work together. That is one of like the main things that we go through here. And I think the sooner we're able to reconcile that, yeah, it's gonna be both, and they maybe don't fit together so good. Like, on paper it doesn't look like they fit together so good. Like, I always joke around the whole men and women. And I'm like, it's this might be, I don't know if I've said this publicly. I've said it to a number of people privately. So this is my moment. But like, to me, men are like dogs and women are like cats. Both incredible species, but like different species. And they function a little bit differently in the way that they think and go. And, sometimes they can get along and they can live in the same household, and other times they don't. And one of our things is, okay, cool. Can we not have resistance to that? It was supposed to be some other way. We were supposed to get along, and somehow we're totally screwing that up. It's like, no, like we were set up with like absolute opposite criteria, and finding our way through that maze and all of the emotion and the intensity and the misunderstanding and everything is like part of the beautiful story of humanity. It's like, that doesn't make sense on paper. There's a lot of stuff in this reality that just like, it doesn't make sense on paper. How is it that the one thing that you're meant to come and be a healer on and heal other people is the greatest wound that you face, growing up? And no matter what you do to try and like stop that process from happening, as a series of events gets kicked in that leads you into that. And as much as if you had great parents to protect you from that, or if you had parents who had no idea what was going on, you had parents who actively contributed to that wound, it's going down. Like, you're experiencing that, and you're going to question and think you did something wrong, only to later become a healer in that and help other people, which is kind of like, why did we go through it in the first place? And then we realize that that's half the beauty, is that we're all a bit batshit crazy coming to this planet, and it really is for the brave ones who wanted to experience it all.
It's very interesting, and I've heard other people talk about this, and I really believe it's true. Like, the second, we are life. We are being lived by life. Life is infinite. So, like, death really doesn't exist. We just transition planes of existence. But I always hear people talk about, like, the human experience is the one that our souls crave the most. And the second that, okay, my time on this plane at this time is done, it's like we want to drop right back in, and we crave this human experience more than any other experience that maybe our souls have had the opportunity to engage or be a part in. And it is so true. Like, I was telling you this earlier, and I share this a lot. We are the most magical, mystical, amazing creatures ever created by God. And to accept and receive that, and to know that we are God, eternal within the body, that our DNA spells that, it tells us that. it's just so affirming to know that none of it's ever wrong. Like, it's never wrong. It's always by perfect design, and how to step into that space and allow for the divine to work through us as part of that divine plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just thinking about how all of us added into the mix. Oh, feigning, we don't really want to be here. I don't want to be here, like, oh, you grumpy space traveler, you volunteered for this. You said yes. You came straight on back, like you said. Quick trip, and then you were like, put me in, coach, and so part of, I guess, for some of us, part of our soul contracts was, okay, we're going to put it in there that, like, we pretended we didn't really want to come, we're going to tell ourselves that for years, just to mix it up and make it spicy. So I love the creativity of everybody, of like really just making their lives so freaking spicy. Good job. Good job, everybody.
I like that. You know, when I think about life, I'm going to use that term. It's getting a little spicy. Like, I'm spicing it up because it's usually me that's interjecting the spice into the mix.
100%, right? As both the game creator and the game player.
I love how because it's always, we're in this beautiful paradox. Like, we wouldn't know we wouldn't know divinity if we didn't have humanity. Like, we wouldn't know the opposite if we didn't have the contrast. We wouldn't know black if we didn't have white. So we can't exist in a non-polarized universe. We need positive and negative, or we wouldn't have any comparison to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What a fun ride for all of us.
It is freaking magical and amazing. And what do you think, kind of what do you see on the horizon? What are your predictions of what's coming, what's going on? Just what do you feel into, or how do you align into that?
Yeah, so I do believe that we're switching into the Age of Aquarius. I do believe that that comes with some core energetic shifts. And that with that, one of the biggest things obviously is going to be, because so many of us have come out of our inner journeys now, how well are we going to play with one another? Many of us have had to rewire our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with the divine in the last season. And now we're stepping into this place of, we want to build communities. That's big on everyone's heart. We're seeing a lot of communities pop up everywhere. We are all leaning towards connection and intimacy. And with that is coming a lot of hopes and dreams, a lot of aspirations, and also a beautiful reality check to see how do we actually show up in those spaces. And so the things that can only heal in relationships is what is coming up now for us to begin to alchemize, and for us to begin, because I don't know a single person right now who does not wish for more connection, who is not hoping to be understood and to understand better, who is not hoping to show up more authentically in relationships, who's not hoping like hell that their communication skills that they've developed in their inner narrative is going to translate beautifully with other human beings. And I think that, having come from, because for me, I tend towards being a little bit of a futurist, and I had to do a couple of energetic adjustments. But years ago, I attempted sort of what I didn't even know at that time what it was, but, Aquarian age community principles, and was met with a lot of resistance back then. But what was so beautiful is it showed a script for, oh, these are the things we're going to need to heal before we're actually able to build long-lasting structures together. We all know at this point we can't do it alone. We are all starting to feel that alone is feeling heavy, and there's not a divine grace on doing things alone at the moment. So there was a divine grace just a little while ago, and it's gone. And so we're getting that sense of like, I'm not even kind of able to, if you want to be in alignment with what's happening with the planet. So where the energy is shifting and where we're starting to see more angelic support and presence and support from the great cloud of witnesses and, the ancestors and the guides and everybody who's here to support the process. And of course, God and Goddess as well, is like there's a lot of breath and movement on building community together, but we're also noticing a lot of people, boom, like clashing in those spaces. And I'm noticing a ricochet of hurt that is taking place with that, almost like a shock factor of, I thought it was going to be different. So I think what I would say specifically for this is, no, it's not that you missed it or that we're missing it and that it's supposed to be different. It's that actually, if our focus can be on how do we work through those things that are still places of hurt in connection with one another, how do we shift our focus to, okay, cool. There's a couple of key criteria that we need to move through before we're able to build these structures. If that becomes our focus versus build the structure and this stuff standing in the way, then we'll find we'll be able to deal with the emotional blockages we have towards community and connection. And as a result, we'll naturally be able to build quite smoothly from that point onwards. So that's one of the big things I think is up for review for humanity at the moment.
I love how you said that. It is up for review for humanity around human relationships. I mean, we really are here to grow. The relationships, even you and I in this conversation, are in relationship with each other. And how are we in relationship with each other is the evolution, or what we're here to be a part of. And we don't get to subvert that. Like, we're not a lone species. Like, I want to, trust me, there's times I want to run off and be a lone wolf in a cabin in the mountains. Nobody come. But that's not how we're designed. We're not even wired that way. We came in for human connection. The only way we grow and learn is through human relationships. And you're right, the healing, or how to be in right relationship. How do I truly act from a place of service? How do I give in order to, if I give you love, I get to receive your love back? Versus, I think what you were speaking to and we're healing through is kind of the give to get, like where we're not in right relationship, where I see you separate from me. So I'm going to do something in order to get something from you because I myself am lacking that. In A Course in Miracles, which I love and study, there's a quote that says, only what you are not giving can be lacking in any situation. And it's so true. It's like, am I being love, or am I being whatever in order to receive that back? You can only give it back to me if I'm willing to authentically, truly give it to you.
So beautiful. Yeah.
So I think we are on a rocket ship of human relationships. And I think it gets really intensified, and human relationships are very intense. And we have so much to grow and so much to learn from in that I think is so beautiful on our evolution and our trajectory. What else would you share is just like on your heart is your passion? Like, if you were to say, why did you incarnate at this moment in this lifetime to serve humanity? What is that calling for you?
I think it's ever evolving, but for me, one of the main things, again, very principle based, I have a commitment to God that I would always serve the purposes of God for this generation. So hence why I track what's happening with the awakening so much, because that is part of the purposes of God for this generation. And so seasonally it shifts and it changes. And also we're evolving so quickly. And man, I'm sure everyone's kind of feeling, you kind of, you learn one thing, you integrate it, and then you share it as far as you can, and then boom, we're on to the next thing. So currently in this season right now, a call on my heart is to bridge the gap between coming from Christianity and the New Age movement and some of the principles, and actually finding a space where one is actually doing a couple things really great and the other one's doing a couple things really, really great, and how they can merge and synchronize with each other a little bit more, a little less sibling infighting around who's the better kid. And so with that has come working with people who have gone through their deconstruction process, people who are shifting. I'm seeing a lot of jumping ponds. And then where I find myself is like, let's call it into an even higher space of, instead of it's a this or that, it's both, but there's a little bit more specific in that. So one of the core factors in that is activating people into their true power. Coming from the Christian base, and I want to speak to the religious elements in it, because there's the mystical Christian side. For me, that is almost completely separate to organized religion. It's there's some overlap, but completely separate. I would say that they are very different journeys to be taking. But from the organized religion side of things, and I see this in culture as well, and a couple of different places, and I see this very much as well for women. I work a lot with women, and I work a lot with women in terms of coming home to your genuine feminine essence. I think that's a big thing on the planet right now that is part of our healing. As every woman heals, so the planet heals. And so that is vital work to be done. Also, the more that we work with women, the more it needs to impact children who are either orphaned or who are in situations where they're suffering. I'm very passionate about what needs to happen for the children at the moment. If we're going to walk in the trueness of our feminine energy, that has got to impact the ones who can't speak for themselves, the ones who don't have full autonomy because they're still in their dependent phase. And so our power needs to touch them. Our power needs to reach them. That is truly healing the bridges on the planet. But yeah, so I work with women a lot with that. And so all these different topics, notice where we have this division inside of us from our power. We also have a lot of conditioning around what power is and what it isn't. And so I work in medicinal spaces with people to be able to go on their journey and to actually initiate themselves. I'm there to facilitate them initiating and anointing themselves into their power on the earth, so that we can see more clarity of voices. We're able to see more clarity of being, of like, that's your divine being. And we're able to interact with each other from a place of like stability and centeredness, which is going to change the game in relationships as well. Because if I know that I'm truly powerful, I don't have to play games with other human beings. I can just meet them with a straight line approach. I can actually just go soul to soul, because I don't feel like I'm lacking anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to get, like you said, that whole give, get weird thing. I'm not trying to do that. So that's why I'm so passionate about that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. How can people find you if they want to work with you or interact with you? Do you have a website, Instagram? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is www.katealexandra.co.za. I know that's how it would be pronounced in the US. And then for the rest of the world, it's .co.za. And so that's got all of the different journeys and offerings that I do. Probably in the next 2 months, I will also be launching a slightly longer journey that is a sort of soul friendship journey. And so I will put out a waitlist application or link for that pretty soon. That's not on the website yet, but the medicine ceremonies and the somatic alchemy spaces is all on there. And then Instagram is this is Kate Alexandra. And yeah, those are the places that you can reach me. I also have a podcast that I have not updated in a while, but new episodes are going to be coming out on that pretty soon. That is called A New Way of Being. That's on Spotify and Apple. And then within the next 2 weeks, there's another podcast that's coming out with one of my incredible creative visionary friends in Australia that we're going to be launching in 2 weeks, which is specifically for a sensitive, badass, visionary woman who would like a place to come home and have conversations very similar to this. So yeah, we'll be chatting.
Oh, yay. I love it. No, I love this community. I love to be in service and connect, and share. I think we're all here to up level and take the human collective to the next level. So I thank you for all your time. I know you live halfway across the world, but I appreciate everything that you have done and shared with me. And I just love your soul. And so glad that you're in my soul tribe and soul family. So thank you so much for today.
I love your soul too, Erin. Thank you so much for having me in your space and on your podcast and in your stream of consciousness that you're creating to gift the world with service. I love you.
I love you. Okay.